A major breakthrough just shattered the silence in the Nancy Guthrie case as Pima County deputies completely barricade a local Catalina Foothills community. Total lockdown mode is currently active around Orange Grove and First Avenue, with massive roadblocks sealing off Placida de Graciela alongside Camino de Michael. Reporter Jacob Owens stands just outside the perimeter, gathering live updates from the ground. So Jacob, what new details have surfaced since our previous broadcast ended? Thanks, Sean. We are positioned directly inside the Shadow Hills subdivision, right by First Street and Orange Grove, witnessing an absolutely massive police mobilization taking place. Endless tactical convoys just keep rolling past our cameras. Right now, our team holds steady right at Camino de Michael and Placida de Michael. Here is exclusive footage from this evening confirming this swarm connects directly to Nancy Guthrie. Units have locked this grid down for 2 solid hours, intensely zeroing in on one specific local residence. Word on the street suggests 2 individuals are already in handcuffs, though authorities remain extremely tight-lipped. Officials clearly warned us not to expect any formal media briefings before tomorrow morning. However, our own eyes captured elite SWAT operators rolling up in heavy-duty tactical transports alongside well over 20 different police cruisers. Desperate residents were blocked from returning to their houses for roughly 90 minutes. Thankfully, authorities are finally allowing a few folks back behind the yellow tape. This upscale enclave hardly fits the profile of a terrifying crime scene. You mostly just see peaceful avenues bordered by incredibly lavish estates tucked safely away. Immaculate landscaping surrounds residents who constantly monitor familiar delivery trucks, recognize local gardeners, and memorize everyone's daily fitness routines. It ranks among Arizona's most affluent suburban communities. Violence proves so completely foreign out here that any sinister event instantly commands the entire nation's undivided attention. America truly held its breath. Between the late evening of January 31st and the dawn of February 1st, 2026, an 84-year-old grandmother vanished straight out of her own living room. Detectives found fresh blood across her steps. Meanwhile, her security footage completely blacked out at 1:47 before dawn. Long before loved ones even sensed danger, the victim had completely disappeared. The missing woman is Nancy Guthrie, whose daughter Savannah anchors the famous Today Show on national television. Now, almost 2 full months after that awful night, her whereabouts stay unknown. Yet a massive shift just totally altered the trajectory of this manhunt. Federal agents suddenly invaded the community, again skipping standard follow-ups and avoiding the usual generic door knocking from their initial sweep. As revealed by elite News Nation investigator Brian Enton, a dedicated correspondent who practically lived in Tucson pursuing this mystery, harder than anyone else, the feds brought incredibly precise, target-specific interrogations this time around. Their aggressive inquiries fiercely center upon a property located practically steps away from the victim's entryway. This particular dwelling stood completely empty until very recently. That exact structure caught the sharp eye of an elite tactical veteran who formerly commanded operations across Pima County, explaining to Parade magazine how perpetrators likely utilized this spot as a shadowy staging ground, converting it into a tactical headquarters, where based on his expertise, the kidnapper lurked silently tracking everything before February 1st. We are forensically ripping that suspect property apart right now, all thanks to a heavily decorated tactical officer boasting 30 years of field action in these exact suburban foothills, who meticulously mapped out the predator's likely methods inside those walls. The terrifying picture he painted using intense operational terminology to dissect the evidence ought to send chills down any true crime follower's spine. Keep watching closely because these vital clues completely outshine mainstream media reports and reveal the chilling current reality. Prior to unpacking the evidence, let us verify our expert's background since absolute trust remains paramount when dissecting sensitive theories. You will not hear wild guesses from some amateur internet sleuth here. Bob Gregaria never wastes time spinning rumors for cheap online clout. This man formerly led elite tactical units for the actual Pima County Sheriff's Department. He navigated the identical legal districts and mastered the precise geography surrounding the terrifying abduction site. Decades of conducting deadly raids taught him everything about wealthy subdivisions, just like this one. He completely understands how deadly silent those specific avenues become at 2 o'clock after midnight. Furthermore, his logistical brilliance reveals precisely how a shadowy intruder could pull off a flawless snatch and grab without ever triggering a single alarm. He actually shared brilliant insights regarding this mystery previously. During an older sit-down with Parade journalists, the veteran carefully weighed the early clues, analyzing the disguised prowler on video, the tactical handwear, and the visible sidearm, factoring in the dead of night to form a profound conclusion. He explicitly warned them that the sinister plot felt entirely deliberate. I truly believe they aimed exclusively at that particular residence. Then he pushed harder, suggesting the sheer level of calculation screamed premeditation. He hinted that the culprit, perhaps lacking criminal genius status, certainly possessed a solid blueprint and managed to maintain absolute radio silence afterward. deliberate, focused, and heavily orchestrated. Those thoughts outline the psychological profile. Yet inside a fresh March 19th article, the expert completely shifted away from merely guessing the kidnapper's mindset. Instead, he began exposing the absolute logistical framework required. He moved past simple malicious foresight. The veteran pinpointed the exact real estate where he assumes the plot was incubated. Grasping this distinction changes everything. High-profile editors aggressively hunted the expert down, right after journalist Brian Enton revealed how federal investigators suddenly swarmed a deserted nearby rental. Such fierce media urgency proves that authorities consider these fresh leads absolutely explosive, hinting at massive development. Measurements lurking just beneath the surface. We must trace the origin of these bombshells perfectly, since separating undeniable facts from internet gossip remains crucial. Back on March 17th, addressing his digital audience, the Star reporter dropped an absolute nuke of exclusive intelligence that no mainstream outlet had even sniffed yet regarding the Bureau. Utilizing deeply embedded agency contacts, he confirmed that special agents flooded the wealthy enclave, again to interrogate locals concerning an abandoned, adjacent house. Curiously, the former tenants fled this exact location right as the horrific abduction went down. He stated directly on air that detectives were aggressively grilling locals regarding one specific tenant who mysteriously relocated right before the abduction occurred. The journalist wisely added a disclaimer warning that these residential coincidences might not automatically equal a smoking gun. Federal authorities practically zeroed in on that specific residence, demanding details regarding its occupants and their exact departure date. Meanwhile, investigative journalist Dave Mack hit the broadcast waves pushing a wildly contradictory narrative about the whole situation. Mack asserted those tenants vanished from the premises right after the abduction took place, implying they stayed until the crime happened and fled instantly afterward. We are absolutely not viewing two simple variations of one single reality here. These represent wildly clashing timelines regarding the tenants fleeing, bringing drastically distinct investigative consequences for each potential scenario. Assuming Enton obtained accurate intel about the neighbors vanishing, prior to Nancy going missing, investigators face a dwelling sitting empty during the crucial planning phase. That means this completely deserted location lacked any actual residents capable of spotting suspicious behavior happening next door. Zero witnesses existed to monitor the neighborhood flow, leaving no locals around to catch a trespasser exploiting the empty grounds. Under those specific circumstances, this unoccupied home leading up to February 1st transforms into exactly what Krieger might officially classify as concerning. An absolute tactical goldmine for a predator seeking a hidden vantage point over the street without risking detection. Should Mack possess the true story regarding a post-abduction escape, the entire investigative focus drastically shifts gears completely. Tenants packing up and ditching their home right after a massive neighborhood crime hits without any warning signals. Incredibly shady behavior, though not officially damning. Detectives view this as a deliberate extraction rather than accidental timing, hinting at a fiercely rapid getaway. It resembles an urgent vanishing act executed once staying put becomes completely impossible, forcing federal agents to intensely weigh both timelines. Enton stating authorities continue pressing for answers clearly proves this investigative avenue remains wide open and highly active. That signals an entirely active mystery waiting for answers, meaning only one journalist truly holds the correct facts. Bureau officials undoubtedly hold the truth, so let us examine local residents who voiced suspicions about the property long before agents returned. Local resident Laura stood right on her street, detailing her first-hand sightings during an exclusive televised interview alongside Brian Enton. She mentioned to Enton, leased homes remain incredibly rare around these parts, yet one sits just down the block. The occupants totally abandoned the place mere days surrounding the incident. She explained specifically, noting their vehicle had mysteriously vanished. Connecting the dots purely based on that missing automobile, she pinpointed its sudden disappearance right around the exact timeline of the crime. While unable to definitively verify if the vehicle vanished prior to or following February 1st, the oddity absolutely prompted her to alert authorities. She explicitly stated she assumed it meant nothing, yet still chose to ring up dispatch just to report the unexpectedly deserted property. Make the call she did, simply because an intensely tight community, noticing every single daily rhythm, will instantly spot a car disappearing without moving vans. Skipping town without a word feels incredibly off, perhaps not undeniably illegal, but certainly enough to warrant checking, which brings us to 30-year Catalina Foothills local Aldine Meister. Having chatted with Brian Enton repeatedly during the initial hunt, she organically brought up the empty residence completely unprompted shortly following Nancy going missing. Speaking bluntly to the journalist, she declared her adjacent neighbors packed up and left, leading her to demand police investigate that dwelling. During week 1, she raised alarms, yet it took 6 weeks before federal agents began asking the exact questions Meister suggested. Initially, though, she had spotted another vital clue. Her extra detail suddenly carries immense gravity once you combine it with every single public statement Krieger recently issued regarding the weeks preceding the tragedy. Roughly 2 or 3 weeks beforehand, she informed Enton about spotting a thoroughly suspicious stranger wandering directly through their typically secure residential streets. Obscuring his identity entirely, the guy kept his cap yanked firmly downward while maintaining a noticeably slouched posture. Lacking proper athletic or trail attire, he sported casual urban garments while navigating an enclave where outsiders stick out terribly. He undeniably looked misplaced, leading her to openly state on television how she observed a bizarre fellow hiding beneath a deeply lowered brim. Slouching noticeably without any fitness apparel on the individual appeared completely out of sync, dressed purely in everyday casual garments. Finding the encounter completely bizarre and unnatural, she knew this outsider absolutely clashed with a community defined by intense familiarity. Keep that visual locked in your mind, as highly decorated retired federal agent Jennifer Kidnapper recently evaluated the masked figure caught on doorbell footage. Showing up on January 11th, exactly 3 weeks prior, he executed what Kidnapper professionally deemed a practice run, though not officially confirmed by the Bureau. However, pay close attention to the Guthrie relatives recently urging the entire public to scour their memories regarding the evenings of January 11th and January 24th. Ignoring broad timelines, they highlighted those precise days, proving that a family collaborating alongside federal agents considers those exact nights utterly crucial. Flagging moments weeks prior to the incident guarantees those calendar days hold massive importance for the ongoing detective work. Assuming the slouching hidden stranger Meister spotted was actually performing Kidnapper's suggested practice sweep ahead of February 1st, the plot sickens entirely. Meister potentially witnessed the perpetrator stalking the block, analyzing the target's house, memorizing schedules, hunting for vulnerabilities, and she caught him red-handed. After calling it in immediately, it took a full 6 weeks for federal investigators to finally follow her incredibly accurate day one advice. Let us dive deep into the tactical blueprint Krieger explained, since the phrasing he dropped during that interview was anything but ordinary chatter. Listen closely, because these are the exact words of a seasoned veteran who spent 30 years masterminding tactical operations in suburban neighborhoods just like this one. He explained to reporters that detectives might view an empty property nearby as the ultimate headquarters or launch pad for the attackers. His precise phrasing was headquarters and launch pad, which in tactical speak means a safe zone to stash your gear and prep your assault. It provides a secure fallback spot after scouting missions, blending in perfectly with the surroundings so nobody bats an eye, playing the part of a normal neighbor. A vehicle parked outside goes completely unnoticed, and Krieger mentioned to the press that occupying a local lease provides the perfect excuse to hover around the area undetected. Notice he said excuse rather than alibi, highlighting a crucial difference, since an alibi covers your tracks post-crime, while an excuse validates your lurking beforehand. That means an observer could easily idle in their vehicle down the block in the dead of night. Should any curious locals get suspicious, the simple claim of living adjacent shuts down all concerns instantly without police involvement before Krieger dropped an even heavier tactical bombshell. He informed the magazine that any individual utilizing a deserted residence would secure the ultimate vantage point, staying completely undetected while monitoring the daily routines and movements of every local resident. They could meticulously log the schedules of every single person on that street, especially Nancy. Drawing from almost 30 years of policing experience in Pima County, he is outlining textbook pre-attack scouting, which remains a core element of any highly orchestrated kidnapping plot. You do not just show up randomly and execute a flawless hit without watching everything beforehand. Predators study the local patterns obsessively to pinpoint the exact moment their victim is isolated, defenseless, and easy to corner. They identify the blind spots from roughly 50 feet out, which is a fairly standard property gap in the Catalina foothills area. Watching a target for a month reveals terrifyingly intimate details, starting with the exact minutes the house goes dark for the evening. An onlooker easily logs both dawn and dusk habits, while noting whether the victim prefers entering through the main gate or the vehicle bay. They can memorize the vehicle's arrival schedule and even calculate the precise seconds it takes for the automatic bay doors to shut completely. Mapping out security lens blind spots becomes effortless, and figuring out if the resident sleeps totally unchaperoned is basically guaranteed, which is a chilling reality. All of that intelligence is easily gathered from 50 feet of relentless, unwavering stalking. Based on Nancy's confirmed final movements on January 31st, she took a rideshare to a family meal at exactly 5:32 in the evening. The driver returned her at 9:48 at night, and by 9:50, exactly 2 minutes later, the secured bay shut, sealing her indoors. The block slept silently without a single guest around until her front porch lens was mysteriously cut off at precisely 1:47 in the morning on February 1st. According to Krieger's expert logic, any patient stalker monitoring the residence from a neighboring plot would have easily deduced that the long span between 9:48 and 1:47 provided the perfect window to strike. That provided roughly 4 unchaperoned hours in a completely asleep suburb with absolutely zero onlookers, meaning the disguised figure on tape showed up heavily equipped. The facts are undeniable. He sported a face covering heavy outerwear, tactical leg, wear a sidearm rig, and a 25-liter Ozark Trail rucksack. Federal authorities officially designated the perpetrator as a medium-built male standing roughly 5 feet 9 inches to 5 feet 10 inches tall. Despite months passing without a single arrest or leaked name, one thing is clear. This was absolutely not a spontaneous wardrobe choice. Every single analyst reviewing the clip agrees this is tactical gear showcasing intense planning for a highly orchestrated midnight mission. Moving to Krieger's magazine feature, he dropped what might be the most crucial bombshell observation delivered by any authority figure since the Bureau released that initial porch video. He explained to the publication that an empty residence, and I must quote his phrasing flawlessly here, away from nosy locals could easily serve as a hidden outpost for planting spying tech should a predator decide to rig the place. Furthermore, these monitoring gadgets might sit completely concealed inside a building or scattered across the yard while neighbors remain totally oblivious. This chilling insight comes straight from an ex-Pima County tactical chief far removed from random web sleuth gossip. It is absolutely not clickbait, but rather a structured breakdown from a veteran who spent decades mastering how local assaults are mapped out and unleashed. Hidden cameras tucked away indoors, away from public view, elevates this beyond a simple peeping Tom, holding field glasses behind a curtain. The commander seriously suggests the likelihood of hardwired spy gear, like a visual recorder or an audio bug. A triggered optic could easily watch Nancy's residence for weeks on end without forcing the stalker to sit there physically. The attacker could monitor a live stream miles away while the house looked abandoned to pedestrians, a terrifying tactic both federal agents and Krieger acknowledge is highly viable. The undeniable truth that investigators swarmed the block again over a month after the incident occurred, focusing their interrogations squarely on that exact abandoned lot, proves they consider this high-tech stalking angle credible enough to chase down vigorously. Shifting to the building crew angle, we find a massive secondary inquiry that mainstream media outlets have practically ignored or completely fumbled. This detail carries massive weight because it perfectly highlights the current direction of the Bureau's working hypothesis. Based on updates from reporter Brian Enton, detectives expanded their scope way beyond just that empty, leased house. At the exact same time, authorities pressed locals for the exact identities of every single tradesman or builder doing renovations on the block right before Nancy vanished into thin air. They bypassed corporate titles and vague renovation summaries, demanding precise personnel rosters linked to specific dates for absolutely everybody on site. Imagine federal agents suddenly descending on your neighborhood, specifically targeting a local homeowner's unfinished building project. Law enforcement blindsided this owner, demanding the identities of every single tradesman and laborer who had ever set foot on that job site. 0 exceptions allowed. How does this connect to the empty residence probe? Both temporary tenants and building crews share one terrifyingly perfect trait for covert surveillance operations. They possess perfectly normal, unquestioned entry into private communities where a random outsider would instantly trigger alarm bells. Work vehicles parked at 7 o'clock in the morning look completely innocent. Guys surveying boundaries or grabbing street-side lunches fade perfectly into the background. This activity becomes invisible community noise, completely bypassing the intense suspicion a roaming stranger might provoke. Simply by doing their jobs, these laborers constantly monitor their surroundings. They spot the early risers versus the late sleepers. They memorize exact entryways facing the road, camping out in these specific districts for weeks or even months. Anyone needing constant invisible access to stalk a target would find a nearby building crew to be the ultimate camouflage, exactly as Krieger's theories brilliantly outline. Ex-Bureau operative Steve Moore dropped a massive bombshell on Ent's broadcast, perfectly decoding the hidden meaning behind this intense federal probe. He verified that authorities are definitely doubling back, though he threw in one incredibly vital distinction. Looking back doesn't equal losing ground. It proves forward momentum, signaling that something huge finally cracked. Fresh suspects unlocked memories or groundbreaking intelligence, demanding immediate comparison against the existing files. We are now watching 2 parallel storylines. Agents are concurrently hunting down leads regarding both the empty lease property and the site laborers. Within Craig's tactical breakdown, they highlight one chilling core mystery. Who possessed the perfect disguise to stalk NY's residents endlessly before February 1st? Furthermore, did a predator hijack that innocent facade to execute something truly sinister? Let us pivot to the undeniable scientific facts regarding what federal crime scene technicians are actively hunting for within those walls. We are discussing ironclad procedural tactics here, not mere guesswork. People unconsciously scatter microscopic biology everywhere, constantly leaving cellular trails across frequently handled objects. Strands containing root tissue cling to furniture, fabrics, and rugs. Spit lands on knobs. Drinking cups or absolutely any area situated near mouth level. When an individual occupies a space for merely a fortnight, the resulting accumulation of contact-based genetic evidence becomes incredibly overwhelming. Traces get deeply embedded inside rug threads, timber textures, entryway borders, glass ledges, and even the rear sides of seating arrangements. The paramount advantage of a leased dwelling is that authorized visitors are both strictly quantified and easily tracked down by authorities. Landlords hold records of previous occupants. Former residents can simply supply voluntary genetic swabs, instantly clearing their profiles from the suspect pool. Following this clearance protocol, only mysterious genetic residue remains from an intruder who never belonged there. This single fact dramatically escalates the stakes of the entire manhunt. Local authorities in Pima County have officially gone on record with Sheriff Nanos explicitly stating they successfully pulled tangled genetic markers from NY's private residence. This multi-person biological cocktail matched neither Nancy nor a single soul from her trusted network. The commander publicly declared, "We strongly suspect we might possess the biological blueprint of our actual perpetrator right here." However, this evidence presents severe hurdles due to its tangled nature. Technicians are struggling to isolate the strands, predicting a 12-month wait, so detectives immediately pivoted toward ancestral tracing. This exact revolutionary method finally nailed the Golden State Phantom and Brian Koberger. Yet discovering an additional suspect location flips the entire playbook completely upside down. Should that empty structure prove to be a tactical base, which represents Krieger's expert theory, rather than verified truth, it stops being a local oddity. It transforms into the terrifying epicenter where a kidnapping was meticulously plotted. Furthermore, if lab technicians match biology from this hideout directly to the mystery strand pulled from NY's living room, detectives' hand lawyers, an absolute goldmine. Multi-location biological hits. We are talking about dual investigation sites, isolated gathering protocols, and unlinked handling chains, all pointing to one identical genetic fingerprint, raising an inescapable courtroom question. Justify leaving your cells at two distinct spots. Defend exactly how your microscopic signature ended up invading a kidnapped woman's sanctuary, the SM sanctuary, and the adjacent empty lot simultaneously. Any veteran government lawyer will confirm this builds an infinitely stronger courtroom foundation than an isolated discovery moving way beyond mere cellular biology into tangible physical impressions. Shifting couches to establish the perfect, sniper-like view of NY's property leaves deep permanent indentations in the rugs that demand expert repair. Keys, paids, computer to erase. Abrasions on the window ledge born from a stalker standing there for endless hours are easily traceable, should spy cameras have been mounted and later torn down. Dismantling that gear guarantees leftover clues. Drill punctures and sticky glue blobs leave behind incredibly distinct chemical fingerprints. Wire tracking grooves etched alongside floorboards or casements might surface alongside hidden digital memory chips. Tiny USB sticks easily abandoned during a panicked escape, which might secretly harbor hundreds of hours of voyeuristic video aimed squarely at NY's residents. Absolutely zero of this evidence is publicly verified yet. Federal authorities are keeping their lab results strictly classified. I am merely outlining the universally accepted textbook procedures for scene processing. These are the precise targets any elite forensic squad systematically hunts for, strictly following the tactical theories that recently made public headlines. Take a look at the official Bureau statement given after Newsweek directly interrogated their Phoenix command center, pressing them hard about the abandoned residence and the intense laborer manhunt. Their digital reply essentially claimed, "We generally refuse to validate or entertain freelance journalistic inquiries." Furthermore, federal policy strictly forbids discussing active case files. This means absolutely nothing. It is merely corporate speak for slamming the door in our faces. Yet in a massive manhunt where agents previously made highly calculated decisions to leak intelligence, like the porch security videos, the verified blood spatters, and the undeniable admission of genetic clues left behind. Calling this a calculated abduction changes everything, and their absolute silence regarding that specific location speaks volumes to me. Investigators never claimed they searched the building and gave it a clean bill of health, nor did they deny finding crucial evidence. Authorities remain completely tight-lipped, which proves that withholding information is a highly strategic maneuver right now. Ex-federal investigator Jennifer Coffindaffer weighed in heavily on the current status of the probe toward the end of March. She concluded that Nancy's disappearance remains an absolute inferno for detectives working out of the public eye. Here is her exact quote. "I can guarantee these professionals are drowning in an ocean of incoming clues that easily dwarfs your average missing persons file." Hear that from a veteran who truly understands the intense pressure and relentless hustle required to chase down complex leads. Let us separate the absolute facts from the swirling rumors circling this mystery, because you need the actual truth. So what do we know for sure? 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie vanished without a trace on February 1st, 2026. Detectives found fresh blood right on her doorstep, while her security system went dark at exactly 1:47 in the morning right after capturing a masked armed intruder. Feds classify the attacker as a man standing roughly 5'9" to 5'10" tall. Unidentified genetic profiles surfaced indoors, prompting Sheriff Nanos to declare it a focused ambush. Her family pulled together a stunning $1 million bounty, supplemented by a $100,000 federal incentive. Despite 13,000 submitted clues, Nancy is still missing. Now let us review the details shared by trusted media professionals. Unverified by a headquarters, rumors suggest renewed federal focus on that empty leasehold, a detail Brian Enton uncovered through insider police connections. Enton also highlighted a deep dive into specific building crews, plus a glaring scheduling conflict between him and Dave Mack concerning the previous tenant's departure. Krieger's staging theory remains a professional guess, absolutely not a verified government conclusion. Coffindaffer suggested a January 11th practice run, an educated guess lacking agency backing, closely followed by the widely debated secondary suspect hypothesis. Veteran investigator Kurt Dabbs formed his theories using open source data. We trace every rumor, identify every informant, and clarify every detail because 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie matters. Kidnappers dragged her into the dark, wearing only her sleepwear, leaving behind both her footwear and the vital life-saving prescriptions she desperately relies upon. As Savannah Guthrie painfully expressed, their relatives are living through sheer torture. Anyone traveling around the Catalina foothills from January 11th to February 1st, 2026, you absolutely must speak up if you noticed any suspicious cars, unfamiliar faces, or bizarre illumination inside that famously abandoned property. Authorities desperately need to hear from you about any random vehicles that simply vanished overnight. Dial 1-800-CALL-FBI immediately or submit clues online at tips.fbi.gov. As Brian Enton explicitly noted, agents strongly suspect the culprit was running a dedicated surveillance post mere steps away from Nancy's main entrance. Former Pima County tactical leader Bob Krieger evaluated the scene, stating the building absolutely mirrored a classic covert operational hub. It was a tactical nest providing the perfect vantage point to monitor routine and plot an attack on a solitary 84-year-old victim. That mysterious vehicle vanished without a trace. The building sits completely deserted, and agents are desperately piecing together every single minute inside. Nancy Guthrie remains lost, and we absolutely refuse to rest until justice prevails. Please subscribe, activate those alerts, and send this video to fellow truth seekers if you want this mystery solved. Sound off below and tell us exactly what you think detectives uncovered inside that structure. Massive public attention makes it absolutely impossible for this predator to blend back into normal society. Nancy truly deserves to be brought back home. From the content, one powerful lesson stands out: the importance of awareness, responsibility, and compassion in how we live and interact with others. In today's fast-moving world, it's easy to overlook the small choices we make every day. Yet those choices quietly shape not only our own lives, but also the lives of people around us. Every action, whether kind or careless, creates a ripple effect. When we choose empathy, patience, and understanding, we build a safer and more meaningful environment for everyone. This message reminds us that change does not always begin with grand gestures. It often starts with simple awareness, paying attention, thinking before acting, and considering the consequences of what we do. When individuals take responsibility, communities grow stronger, trust deepens, and problems can be prevented before they escalate. More importantly, it calls on us to care not just about ourselves, but about others. True progress happens when people look out for one another. Speak up when something is wrong and take action to make things better. In the end, the lesson is clear. Small, conscious actions guided by empathy can create powerful, lasting impact.